All right, good morning, everyone who missed class. We're going to go through the assignment for today, which is part one, Dark They Were. This is for the short story we're about to read. We're beginning to read called Dark They Were and Golden Eyed. But before I open it up, I want to just talk to you quickly about the independent work for this week. You have your scoop pad as normal. This week we have a scoop pad lesson. Make sure you watch the video before um, before doing the practice questions. It's over point of view, which we talked about in class. But if you're having trouble understanding the video or the types of questions, then go ahead and come to Zoom at 2, Ms. Zambles, and I will explain it to you. I'll go through as many questions as I need until you understand and are getting them right. Okay. Then we have window notes over Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury is the author of the story that we're about to read. This is independent, and I'm giving you all week and all of next week to work on this. All you have to do is open it up. There's a link to a PowerPoint. Go through that PowerPoint and copy over the information onto your window notes. Okay. With that out of the way, let's open up Dark They Were, part one, and it'll start off looking like this inside of Kami. Okay, so first let's go through some notes so that we understand kind of some of the things that might come up in this. First new term is imagery. Imagery is the practice of using words to describe objects, actions, and ideas in a way that activates the five senses. So go ahead and write this down on those blanks. It's the practice of using words to describe objects, actions, ideas in a way that activate the five senses. Okay, and the five senses, of course, are the things we learned in kindergarten: eyes and ears and mouth and nose, head and shoulders, knees and toes. Okay, so we've got sight from your eyes. Then the ones that are missing here are sound, touch, and taste and smell. Okay, make sure you have those filled out. Okay, our next new term is visual imagery. Visual imagery is a type of imagery, which imagery is, of course, just the description. Okay, if you know what the word visual means, you know it has to do with your eyes. So visual imagery is descriptive language that activates your sense of sight. Okay, and here's our example. I struck the match, filling the room with a flickering orange glow. When you read that, you should be able to imagine in your head an orange light flickering from a match. Okay, our second type of imagery is audible imagery. Okay, audible imagery, if you know what audible means, is language, descriptive language used to activate the sense of sound. So this, if imagery is just the way things are described, visual imagery is the way it's described how they look. Audible imagery is description of how it sounds. Here's our example. The fire roared as the blaze grew larger. Okay, if you've ever sat around a fire, you can imagine or think back to what it sounds like, the whooshing of the flames, the crackling of the sticks. That is the sound of the fire roaring. Our third type of imagery is tactile imagery, and tactile means touch. Okay, so tactile imagery is the use of descriptive language that activates the sense of touch. For example, the burning fire flooded the room with warm air. So now we know what it looks like, orange light from the fire. We know what it sounds like, it's roaring, and we know what it feels like, it's warm. Make sure you have those copied down. Our next word is onomatopoeia, and the classes today have told me that this has been a review word. Okay, onomatopoeia is any word used to represent a specific sound. Okay, so we have a couple examples here: whack, pop, bang, pow. We've also had boom and what else did we come up with in class? Kaboom, all those ones. Okay, so that is onomatopoeia. Next, we have the term mood. Mood is the way the reader is meant to feel about a story. Okay, mood is impacted by the choice of words and their description. If an author uses the word submerged, it's going to be a little more intense than if they were to just say underwater, even though they mean the same thing. Okay, make sure you have that copied down, and I'm going to read the story to us. As I go through this, we're going to grab a highlighter. I'm going to use green. We're going to ignore these instructions up at the top, except for the last part, which says to find words that contribute to the mood. Okay, so as I read this, I want us to highlight things that tell us what the mood of this story is. The rocket ship's metal cooled as the meadow winds blew across it. The lid gave a bulging pop. From its clock interior stepped out a man and a woman and 3 children. The other passengers whispered away across the Martian meadow, leaving the man alone among his family. The man felt his hair flutter as the tissues of his body drew tight as he was standing in the center of a vacuum. His wife before him seemed to almost whirl away in smoke. The children, small seeds, might have at any instant blown away into the Martian climate. The children looked up at him as people look up to tell what time it is from the sun. His face was cold. "What's wrong?" his wife asked. "Well, let's get back on the rocket." "Go back to Earth?" "Yes, listen." The winds blew as if to flake away their identities. At any moment, the Martian air might draw his soul out of his body as marrow is sucked from a white bone. He felt as if he was submerged in a chemical that could easily dissolve his mind and burn away his past. They looked at the Martian hills in the distance that had been worn away by time, the crushing pressure of years. They saw the old cities lost and lying like small bones delicate among the blowing lakes of grass in the distance. "Chin up, Harry," his wife said. "It's too late. We've come over 65 million miles. We can't go back now." The children with their yellow hair hollered up into the dome of the Martian sky. There was no answer but the racing hiss of the wind through the stiff grass. He picked up the luggage in his cold hands. "Here we go," he said, a man standing on the edge of the sea ready to wade in and be drowned by it. They walked into town. Their last name was Bittering. His name was Harry and his wife's name was Cora. Tim, Laura, and David were their children. They moved into a small white cottage and had themselves a good breakfast there. But their fear was never gone. The fear laid with Mr. Bittering and Mrs. Bittering, a third unwelcomed partner at every midnight talk and every morning when they woke up. "I feel like a salt crystal," he often said. "I feel like I'm in a mountain stream, being washed away. We don't belong here. We're Earth people. This is Mars. It was meant for the Martians, for heaven's sake. Cora, let's buy tickets and go home." But his wife only shook her head. "One day, the atom bomb will destroy the Earth, and we'll be safe here. Safe and insane." Tick Tick-tock, 7 o'clock, sang the clock in the background. Time to get up. And so they did. Something made Mr. Bittering check absolutely everything in their new house every single morning. There was a warm hearth, good. There were potted plants, good. Precisely, as if he had expected something to be amiss. The morning paper was toast warm, as it had come fresh off of the rocket from Earth. He broke its seal and tilted it as he ate from his breakfast plate. He forced himself to look happy for his family, and he said, "Colonial days all over again. Why, in another year there'll be millions of Earthmen here on Mars, big cities and everything. They said we'd fail, said that the Martians wouldn't like our invasion. But did we find any Martians? No, not a living soul. Oh, we found their empty cities, but not one single living creature inside of them, right? A river of wind blew over their house. When the wind stopped rattling the windows, Mr. Bittering swallowed and looked at his children. I don't know, said David, their son. Maybe there are Martians around and we don't see them. Sometimes at night, I think I hear them. I hear the wind, the sand hits my window, and I get up and I get scared. I think I see something in those towns out in the mountains where the Martians used to live. And I think I see things moving, Papa. And I wonder if those Martians mind us living here. I wonder if they won't do something about it. Nonsense, Mr. Bittering said, looking out the windows. We're clean, decent people. He looked at his children. All those dead cities have some kind of ghost in them. Memories. He stared at the hills. You look at a staircase and you wonder what the Martians must have looked like climbing it. You see the Martian paintings and you wonder what the painter must have been like. And you make up these little ghosts in your mind, but they're just a memory. It's natural. It's just your imagination. You haven't been wandering around in those ruins, have you, David? No, Papa, David said, looking at his shoes. See that you stay away from them. Would you pass the jam? Just the same, said little David. I bet something happens. Hey, so after having listened to the story be read to you, the question becomes, what would be the best mood to describe this passage? Would you describe this as cheerful, exciting, spooky, or sad? Take a second to think about it, and I'm going to tell you if you haven't figured it out yet. Okay, the mood of this piece is spooky. Okay, you saw as I was going through this several highlights. All of these highlighted words and phrases are part of what makes this so spooky and creepy as we read through it. Let's go back through a couple more because I only left half of them on here. So if we start back from the beginning, they're landing on an alien planet. They're landing on Mars to move to their new home. And as soon as he steps out, he feels this strange sensation, as if he were standing in the center of a vacuum. His skin is crawling all over him. And he says to his wife, let's go back. Go back to Earth. Those are part of the first things that tell us that this is a creepy, spooky, mysterious story, that they want to go home. Let's see here. He felt like his soul was being drawn out of him. He felt like he was going to have his mind melted away. Something just isn't right. And he looks out at the Martian landscape and he sees these lost old cities lying like bones in the distance. Okay, these are abandoned cities, towns that have been left to ruin and fall apart, skyscrapers, off in the distance so small that they look like little bones sticking up out of the Martian earth. And then his wife tells him, it's too late. It's too late to go home. That's part of what makes it so creepy. So they go home, or they go back to their new house, and in their new house here on Mars, it says the fear never left them. The fear was always there, a third unwelcome partner, as he and his wife sat around talking at night, unwelcome in the morning. And he tells his wife he feels like he's being washed away, like something just isn't right. And he says, let's just go home. And she tells him, we can't go home. One day, the atom bomb or nuclear bombs will destroy the earth. And this is where they're going to be safe. Continuing through here, the ones that we've seen, something made him check every morning to see everything because he thought something would be wrong or out of place. We have another part with these empty cities. No one's in them. When people from Earth first got to Mars, they found these cities abandoned. Where did they go? That's creepy. It's supposed to be anyway. And then the little boy is at breakfast telling them he thinks he sees something moving outside at night. And the dad says, no, those are just ghosts of your imagination. The choice of the word ghost here is very intentional on the part of the author. He could have had the father just say, nonsense, it's just your imagination, and left it at that. But instead, he describes them as ghosts of your imagination. And then, of course, at the very end, it says something happens that afternoon. Very foreboding, very mysterious what's about to happen. All of that contributes to the idea that this is a spooky, creepy, mysterious passage. So make sure that you've copied down all of these highlights, as well as answering this last question, and that you have these parts here from the beginning filled in, and you can go ahead and turn that in for your credit for the day. I'll see you tomorrow.